Welcome to another episode of the School of Why podcast. I'm joined with a very exciting guest, Miss Jamie Hess. How are you, Jamie?
I am fabulous.
I am super excited about this. You have done so many different things. I didn't even realize until today that you even are on QVC and you've kind of lived all these lives at once. Tell us just a quick tidbit about yourself and what you're passionate about and how you got to where you're at.
Okay, I'm going to give you the quick mic drop backstory that's so funny because I'll start at the end and go back to the beginning. So currently I live here in Pennsylvania, and the reason I moved from New York City, which was my home for 2 decades, to Pennsylvania is because one of my many jobs as an on-air personality is at QVC, which I love. I love that job. I'll tell you about it in a minute. But suffice it to say, now I'm like a suburban mom who sells clothes to America on QVC. Like, couldn't be more Pollyanna Precious, which is truly who I am now, right? Like, I'm rather boring in the most delicious way.
Yeah, because you have, how many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids.
Okay, nice.
But here's like the precursor, right? When you've been to the depths of hell and life got pretty friggin' crazy, vanilla and boring is like an everyday vacation. I love waking up and not having a 911 emergency in my life. Let's just put it that way. Like, it's a beautiful thing to live in the middle. So to back up, started my life. My mom is TV journalist Joan London. So
okay.
Yeah. So she's like
Joan London.
What's that?
I said everyone loves Joan London.
Everyone loves Joan London, especially me. She's my best friend, and I've looked up to her since the get-go. But she was America's mom. So suffice it to say, I was never supposed to be a drug addict.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody was supposed to be.
Right. But I was not expected to be a drug addict, I guess. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah. You were a little more, it was a little more public than maybe my journey of being a drug addict.
Yeah. Well, perhaps. I was supposed to be just this perfect prop in America's family, right? Like, and so the pink hair and the fishnet stockings and the Doc Martens and the going to raves in the 90s, like, wasn't my path, but it became my path.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Frankie, I feel like, I don't know if you can relate to this. I mean, I was born and I needed a cocktail in my hand at like 3 months old. I don't know about you. I was just born an adult.
And why do you say that? Like, what was it at that younger age? Like, are you saying like you just needed something more? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Here's what I think, because I spent many years grappling with this, thinking, man, when I came into recovery, finally, I heard all this trauma from people. And I thought, well, geez, what's my excuse? Right? Like, I almost felt like I didn't deserve to be an addict because I hadn't had a traumatic childhood. I hadn't been abused. And I was like, oh, God, how dare I? Who am I? And then what I learned is like, I was probably biologically predisposed to be an addict. And whether that's true or not, all I know is that I always needed to escape this brain. There was too much going on there. Yep. It was torturing me. And when I found drugs and alcohol in the beginning, they were a solution. They weren't a problem. Right.
Oh my gosh. I say that all the time. So first of all, I 100% can relate to you because I didn't have as traumatic of a childhood as hundreds of the people that I've sponsored and worked with. And it sometimes can feel like, I mean, because I got 15 years now, okay? And so when I go to tell my story, I have to remind myself that it actually is my disease talking when I am starting to downplay I didn't have it as bad or my story's not good enough, especially when I'm going into the like hardcore, just out of jail crowd, or into rehabs and things like that. And I'm going to tell you, that in and of itself is how I know I'm a drug addict and alcoholic. Because that idea that, oh, maybe I was just young, or maybe it was just a season, maybe I'm older now and I've learned. And that thought in and of itself continues to qualify me as an addict and alcoholic. But I can totally relate to that feeling of they had it so much worse. And it really, what it boils down to is, because it isn't like for me, like I don't feel like it was my parents' fault, and I think it sounds like that's the same for your story. And the fact is, it has a lot less to do with nurture than we think. I mean, it's easy to blame nurture, but you had mentioned kind of born that way, or this idea of nature versus nurture when it comes to this kind of stuff. And either way, everyone is on their own journey. And one thing I learned right away when I got sober was that no one could actually, what do you call it when a doctor gives you a diagnosis? No one could diagnose me. I had to diagnose myself. And that's an interesting thing, because you kind of are wanting someone to do that because you still have these like reservations for a long time. That's what keeps us from like finally being like, okay, there's no managing this.
Yeah, that couldn't be more true. I mean, I definitely wanted somebody to come save me for the last couple of years of my addiction. And eventually they actually did. At the very end, it got so bad that Mama Joni came knocking down my door and was like, what's going on? And what do we need to do? And that's when I went to treatment. But I also just need to say this, like, you know, my parents didn't do anything to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they have no fault in it. But a lot of like what I was grappling with was I saw the world through the lens of my mom is perfect. I can never be that perfect. I might as well just like, can I curse on this show? I might as well just
curse on this show. Yes.
Might as well just fuck off and go the other way. Right.
Right. Like, oh, look, I can relate to that so much. I call it pretense. So there's this pretense. And for me, it wasn't as much about like this celebrity type of status or public eye per se, but my parents were in the public, but more from like working in homeless shelters, running nonprofits, that kind of stuff. But there was this pretense also tied to like my religious upbringing, right? That like there's just, you're supposed to be a certain way, you know, as it relates to religion. So there's all these things that intertwine. But ultimately, it's interesting that I kind of want to drop into this for a second. So this idea of pretense, right? Or that you're supposed to be perfect, that has brought me, even in sobriety, to a different type of bottom, like an emotional bottom. And that was 6 years ago. I got a divorce, right? So that was really wild, being stone cold sober and being in almost a worse feeling bottom than when I got sober, which is mind blowing, you know, because I think most people are hoping that, you know, you get sober and then everything's perfect. But that was a game changer for me, where I had to really start to be okay with who I am, regardless of what everyone else thinks. Because the truth is, not that many people are thinking about us as much as we are.
Yeah. What the world thinks of us is probably the most confounding situation that I deal with and that most of my clients deal with. Because, you know, today I am a coach and I coach a lot of women. And I think it's certainly not exclusive to women, but we sure spend a lot of time wondering what other people think about us, right? And it truly is none of our business. But here's the deal, Frankie, is like, thank God for 12-step recovery in particular. I say this all the time. I just, you know, addiction is one of the only diseases that you come out on the other end better than you, like, you know, you go into remission and you're healthier than before you got the disease. Because like a lot of how I deal with life, and even what I speak about on stage today, it comes directly from my spiritual recovery journey. And I make no secret that like a lot of this was news to me. Like, I'm not the victim. What do you mean? Like reframe things through a lens of gratitude? Huh? How? What? Impossible, right? And learning how to just deal with this stuff, to me was a blueprint for living that somehow I just like missed. I never got those instructions for life. They must have fallen out of the box before I opened it. I don't know what happened.
Well, you know, a lot of people don't have those instructions. And what I've actually found is that, because when I first got around recovery and things like that, people were saying they were grateful alcoholics, things like that. And I was always like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, our life is over. The party's over. This is going to be this drab life. Okay, fine. I'll do it because I have to, but this is going to be a shit experience. And then as you start to get into it, you realize, holy crap, thank God I was an addict or an alcoholic so that I could find this, because the basic steps of it is incredible. And both of my books talk a lot about that. Like, my journey as a thought leader was born out of my experience of wanting to share this with normal people, if you will, or especially like the corporate space. And it's so great to out the gate, like you just did, right? So clearly out the gate, you come out with this stuff. I'm the same way. I wear it on my sleeve. And it's crazy because I talk about it so much. I'm sure you do too. It's become very normalized to talk about this. But for most people, they're like, wow, you're so vulnerable. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, I forget that like not every room is that open and authentic.
100%. And it's funny. I actually shared 2 posts on my Instagram. My Instagram account is NYC Fit Fam. And that's, I'll get to that because it's kind of where yeah, that's where my whole life changed, was when this little Instagram account took off. But I shared the other day a post that was like, why I'm grateful I was an addict. And I had a part 1 and a part 2. And some of the comments, it's like people were up in there being like, yeah, do drugs, kids. Like, oh, normalizing sin. Like, I don't know who some of my followers are. Who knows?
Oh
you
my
know, most of them are lovely
yes,
people,
normalizing sin. Can I use that for my next book title?
Right. And so I had to gently, with love, grace, and kindness, explain to them that look, here's the deal. When you're an addict, you're not a bad person trying to get good. You're a sick person trying to get well. And that is it. I'm not going to explain it any more than that. If you want to go look it up, it's a diagnosable medical condition. So if you want to shame me for having addiction, you're going to shame someone else for having cancer, if that's your standard. Not right. Not a good thing to do. Right.
Absolutely.
So maybe
listen,
don't do
that. The fact is that you have to early on, excuse me, you have to really early on in the process decide that you're going to give up on trying to help everyone understand it. Sure. But man, so you know that one of my passions is love your weird. Okay. And we met this year at a really amazing community, Impact 11. I'm a huge fan. I think you are too now. And we came together there, and it was very unsuspecting. When I met you, I was a little late to that event, but remind me, so you were surprised that I was the love your weird guy. Apparently someone had mentioned my work or something like that. And I remember you having to leave the conversation with me early because you needed to get out of the happy hour thing that we were in, obviously not drinking, but everybody else was. But that whole gathering, you're like, I got to go upstairs. I've got to write this stuff down. And that was in June, I think. So not that long ago. Tell me a little more about what was going on with that.
So so this is like a perfect kind of segue to bring you up to date from the drug addiction until now. Here's the quick and dirty, the next 25 years of my life. After being a drug addict.
That's how long you've been sober?
Ish, right? So I went into rooms of recovery in my mid-20s.
Okay.
I was a chronic relapser for a few years. When Joni came banging down my door, I was in my late 20s, went to treatment, got out, spent a couple of years getting my shit together, and then met my husband and we started our life. So yeah, it's been some time. Awesome. And here's what's cool too. Congrats. Really quick sidebar. I've seen my husband have one drink on our 3rd date. After our 3rd date, I was about to celebrate 4 years, and he goes, can I come to that meeting with you? It sounds like it's an important thing to you. I'd love to just learn more about it. I don't know anything about that. He came to the meeting, totally identified with the speaker, and was like, oh shit, I belong here. And he's sober 11 years now. So
wow, look at that.
That's cool too. All right. So the long and short of it is I had worked in public relations for almost 17 years, and I'd really risen up the ladder there. I was the SVP of a big agency. I represented brands like McDonald's and General Motors and LinkedIn, W Hotels Worldwide. But because I had a recovery vocabulary and my life was just really rooted in wellness and mindset and spiritual growth, I was seeing people like dropping like flies from burnout all around me. I mean, we all worked, it was the New York City hustle culture. We worked 7 days a week, and I was traveling on the road because, clients like in Chicago and this place, that place, I was spending my life at airports, and I saw people struggling. I mean, mental breaks, they were gaining weight, they were unhappy, they weren't seeing their families. And I started trying to help them like in the trenches one by one. And, let me be your accountability partner. Let's get to the gym. Let me help you with some reframing of your mindset. And eventually I started this Instagram account called NYC Fit Fam. And it started as that moniker because my husband and I got engaged on a treadmill at Barry's boot camp. And my mom was there. So it was like on page 6 and made some news. So we kind of became that New York fitness couple that and it was our thing. So we started an Instagram account and it took off. All of a sudden I was like, babe, we have like people following us who aren't like, my family and my cousin. Right. It's like I have 5,000 followers and 5,000 followers. And eventually I started getting brand deals and all this stuff. And then I started doing a lot of talking head stuff on TV. I was on Dr. Oz a lot and the Today Show as a wellness expert. And all of a sudden I was like, I think my side hustle outpaced my full hustle. And I left my corporate job and became a wellness entrepreneur full-time. I was a content creator, TV personality, podcaster, etc. And that was kind of my entry point into the world of thought leadership. I did a TEDx on, it's called Confessions of a Binge Eating Wellness Influencer, because I've also struggled with binge eating disorder and bulimia. Because so the reason I kind of like pussyfooted around how long I'm sober is because I consider my bout with food addiction as a relapse.
Okay.
So I struggled, right? Because it presented the same. I was so unwell.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can get it done however you want. Gambling, working, food, people. I mean, you don't have to be exclusive to addiction, of course.
You got it. So I had to do the work around that. So long story short, where it had put me out when I joined Impact 11, which was like 2 years ago, was
you joined Impact 11 2 years ago?
So I've been to 3 boot camps, a mastermind, like one of the group cohorts. I did demo day. I love that group of people so much.
I thought that was your first time there because I hadn't met you yet. Wow.
No, I'm obsessed with them. And you know, we all become junkies. It's like the best kind of cult.
Oh, yeah. It's a good one.
If anyone out there is listening and you're like, what are you guys talking about? Impact 11, of course, professional keynote speaking development kind of coaching group. And they are just incredible human beings. And that's where Frankie and I met. So fast forward all these years, I'm like, I don't want to be, my business development, head of my biz dev team was like, let me ask you a question. Because he's honest and I love honest people. Don't tell me I'm doing great if there's something I could be doing better. He's like, let me ask you a question, Jamie. Do you want to be an influencer for the rest of your life or do you want to be a thought leader? And it was like a dagger to my heart.
Whoa.
Because he's right. Do you want to be doing like a skit about Band-Aids or like a hoedown about children's vitamins on Instagram for the rest of your life? Or do you want to be changing people's lives? Not that brand ambassadorship isn't important. Not that being a content creator isn't cool, but it's not the end game. I have a message on my heart, as Ryan Estes would say, that I want to get out to the world, that I need to get out to the world. And I need the portal to do it. So I'd gone to Impact 11 to develop my keynote speaking. And what they had said to me was like, dude, you're not just a corporate wellness speaker. Let's be real. You're not just like, you're not a fitness trainer. Like we're going to do jumping jacks and eat an apple. Like you come from 17 years of having like the institutional pedigree of having worked in corporate. You love business and hustle. So you need to merge a wellness message with a real business message because you're good at it. And I also broke that glass ceiling by leaving my corporate job. I 5x'd my salary from corporate in the first 18 months of having left. And he's like, you have something to say, right?
That's right.
So I have been struggling, Frankie, for that first kind of 18 months with like, how do I mix this wellness message with a business message in a way where there's a marketing wrapper on it, where I'm not just saying, well, I love wellness, but I also do business. Like, I was like, what is the kind of the undercurrent of both things for me? Why have I been able to sink into wellness in a way where other people look at it as a chore, but for me, it's a passion? And what is it about my take on business that always made me successful and made me successful in these agencies where all the other girls would be doing this dumb infighting and all of this nonsense. And I would just like, I had my blinders on and I was like, I loved what I did. And I always rose the ladder very quickly. It's not because I'm better than them, but it's because I had learned something. What is it? What is it that I learned that I took into both of those spaces and it made me win? And if I really sank into that, the underpinning for me and my favorite term from, my recovery days is having an attitude of gratitude. And I don't mean that in platitude either. I mean a deep, deep ensconcement in like gratitude, like wearing that gratitude like a loose cloak in a way that like it is the filter through which I see the world. And it's why I wake up every day happy, because I too could focus on all the things that are wrong. I too could focus on the problems.
That's right.
But every day it's an exercise and I choose not to. So I'm thinking through gratitude, right? And I'm like, well, it really is this deep study of gratitude. And I know some of our friends talk about gratitude. Chris Shembra is one who's in Impact 11. He's the gratitude guy. I'm not the first person to think about gratitude,
right.
But just like leadership or creativity, I can have my own take on it, right? So I'm like, gratitudeology. Yeah, that's cool. I'm sure that's a thing, right? That's a thing. So I start, and by the way, so I'm thinking about this after I had just seen the presentation on Love Your Weird. And I'm thinking, Frankie has such a cool marketing wrapper. Like that's a point to his pencil, man. That describes him. You know what you're getting. That's neat. And I started thinking like, well, gratitudeology, if I was wrapping this around like the ABCs of gratitudeology, like how do I do that? What is it? What is the study of it? The practice of it? So I start looking it up. No one has the domain. No one has the trademark. By the end of the day, I bought the domain, done the USPTO application for the trademark. And I was like, dude, that's my thing. Like, it feels so authentically aligned. And I came home and I started writing, and Frankie, like, it just changed my life because I'm so connected to this material and this message that I wake up every day with a new sense of purpose.
Okay. First of all, obviously I love this story because I got to be a part of it and didn't know you, but this is okay. So I spend so much energy on this exactly what you're talking about. And that is, how do I take what at my core I know to be true and to be what changed my life, and translate that for, first off, other people, but even more so, what does that do for an organization? So that has been my biggest thing the last year that's transformed my business. And that is, it's one thing to help individuals break free, which we've done a ton of work on that through wellness, through recovery, spirituality, to change the way an organization works and to impact an entire organization to thrive through disruption and to take change on, like, with gratitude or grace, to your point. So what would you say, like, now that you've been like really digging into this the last month, 2 months, when you think about the problem this is going to solve for a company, okay? Because I really feel like that's where a lot of people miss this in the thought leadership space, because ultimately, if you're going to do this for free, then do it however you want. But if you want to be able to make a living doing your calling, you've got to have solutions that can impact an entire organization. What is it that you're bringing, right? What is it? What problem are you solving that is going to impact the types of KPIs that the boardroom or the people that unsuspectingly would not think gratitude? Listen, we got to grow our revenue. We're going to be extinct in 6 months thanks to generative AI, right? So that's where everybody's at, the freaking out. You walk in and with gratitudeology, I'm going to get that. Gratitudeology, which is clearly your next book title. What does gratitudeology do for my organization that's freaking out?
Yeah, well, I'm so happy you asked. Because here's the deal, right? Well, we know the state of business right now. We know the state of talent, right? 67% of people report being disengaged. That's according to Gallup. We know that companies that have an engaged workforce report 2.5 times higher profits. So the proof is in the pudding, right? People are 87% more likely to leave a job if they feel disengaged. It's very clear to me that people are disengaged. And what's crazy is that post-COVID, we all got what we thought we wanted. We thought we wanted to work from home or to do a hybrid or to have to commute less or to have a little bit more freedom, or we could side hustle. They call it slashing now. And people are just, they don't know.
Wait, if they slashing. Want to so you can tell I'm getting old. What is that now?
So slashing is the term for like, so, you know, like the term side hustle kind of came first. Then we had like people were talking about quiet quitting, but then I was reading like in Inc. about a lot of clandestine contracting where people were taking on 2 jobs because they could, because no one was over their shoulder. So all of a sudden people are slashing, like taking on 2 jobs, kind of, you know, you would call them a multi-hyphenate.
Okay, can we be honest though? Quiet quitting is not new. Like, okay, well, that's a funny thing about quiet quitting. They're acting like it's new. Like, not doing your job that good because you're disengaged is 100%. Old.
Thank you.
And you're still going to quit or get fired. So it's like, okay. All right.
Well, I think it's just because we're all trying to adapt. Like, people don't have as much control over, like, are they really doing what they said they did?
Oh
like,
my gosh. It's a mind F.
It's a mind F.
And so you know, you're in the profitability business.
I'm in the profitability business, and I was just sitting
with
the career. Yeah, I was just sitting with the CMO. She's also the career expert for LinkedIn. I was just having a meeting with her on Tuesday.
Of course you were.
I used to represent LinkedIn. They were my client. So I was in New York and she was in New York to be on the CBS morning show, and we had a coffee. And, you know, she was saying that from a lot of their research, Gen Z actually does want to go back to work. Like, they actually get it. They actually get what they're missing, and that they're not going to be as well prepared for the rest of their careers as the rest of us are. Because I know you know this, but like, man, I've gained as much from traveling with my boss and watching how she conducted herself through an airport, like how she ordered her Starbucks, or how she like navigated TSA with the phone under her thing, and she was taking off her shoes, and like she total like grace under fire, and like negotiating a big deal. And I learned as much from mimicking her actions in those moments as I did from being in the boardroom or in the Zoom room today. You can't duplicate that. Like you just don't have the same relationship with work and with your mentors. So I do feel bad for people who are, work from home or hybrid in a different way today, because I think you're missing a lot. But my point is this, Frankie, is that gratitude. Yeah. Gratitude for me is a route back into engagement, because we are it's a society of people who are just confused about work right now, that nobody even knows what's going on. We're still coming out of it. We're like, oh, everything's back, but like, it's not, just not. We're still trying to reconcile with what's going on. And so, I have a 3-pillar plan, the ABCs, right? Ask, become, connect. My first thing is just getting people within the organization to ask themselves, to really ask themselves, because maybe sometimes we just get a job and we go to the job and we do what was asked of us, but we forget to really ask ourselves, who do I want to show up as in this life, in this role? Like, and am I like, not what my boss wants from me? Who do I want to show up as? In become, in the second pillar, in the B, I use research-backed techniques grounded in gratitude to kind of like sweep away the bad stuff, to make space to become that person that you 100% figured out. And then C, connect, is understanding that gratitude is a pro-social exercise that's best when shared. Because, and Chris Schembra shared this. We were on a call the other day. He goes, dude, my biggest gripe with the gratitude industry, he goes, guess what it is? I was like, what? Gratitude journals. I said, what do you mean? He goes, gratitude journals. He goes, the fact that people think that you can sit by yourself and just write everything down, and that is the one that fundamentally is going to change your entire life. We got to connect, man. Like, we got to make this is a pro-social.
You got to share it. You've got to engage with it, and you have to act in accordance with it. So I love where you're headed, because a lot of the same principles, what I've learned in meeting so many thought leaders, is that a lot of the stuff that we're talking about sometimes starts to intersect, a lot of times, and even might sound the same. And there's a reason for that. It's because it's fucking true. Okay. And so that's what I love when you and I have talked maybe 3 times, and we pretty much could probably finish each other's sentences. Yeah. And that's because we've experienced things even outside of knowing each other that are uniquely universal. Okay. And so one thing that I think a lot of people miss is the simplicity of transformation, where transformation comes from, where growth comes from, where profitability comes from. It is very basic, simple things. Now, they're not easy, right? Because it goes contrary to your default factory settings, right? So you just talked about some things that are really important. Like, how am I going to show up? Like, for me, I call that authenticity. All right. So like one of my first pillars is get honest. Like, because once you get honest about the problem, then you can drop into starting to take inventory, right? Like you do in B, which is like this process. Most people think I've got to up level, I've got to add all this stuff in, and I've got to become this thing. No. The only way this actually works is if we just go back into who we already are. So like my whole concept with Love Your Weird is that when we were 5 or 6 years old, we already had the genius level of imagination that is required for continuous innovation, which is what is required to not go extinct. So that, and there's tons of science, not the least of which is the NASA study that basically says they tested 1,600 5-year-olds, 98% of them identify at that genius level of imagination. 98%. By adult, the same 5-year-olds, fast forward 15 years, by adults, it's only 2%.
Oh my God.
That's because we don't learn imagination. We don't learn creativity. We unlearn it. The other thing about a 5-year-old is that they don't give 2 shits about what you think about me, because they don't know that they're supposed to yet.
Totally.
So the Love Your Weird actually came because I was a weird kid that was told that by my friends and my teachers that, like, you're different. Because when I was 5, I was in the basement turning it into a lab, trying to invent a time machine and acting like a cowboy and trying to get to space. And my parents in the 80s had TV preachers in the background, so I would pretend to be a TV preacher. So I was all kinds of stuff when I was a weird kid. Speaking of which, what were you up to at 5 or 6? What was your weird, Jamie?
Yeah, well, so I was very much in my own world when I was younger, but I became a horseback rider. And I thank God for horseback riding, because let me tell you something. It saved my life several times over in my later years.
Yep.
But that helped me find my sense of self, my sense of purpose. And you had mentioned this. You would ask me, like, what did you want to be? What did you want?
Or what did you make believe? What did you like to make believe
for a living? My parents asked me that question, and I was like, that's so easy. I got an answer. They're like, what? I was like, My Little Pony. They're like, well, yeah, I don't know if you could be that. I was like, okay.
You wanted to actually be one of the ponies.
All right. I was like, okay. Rainbow Bright.
Love it.
Rainbow Bright was my second answer.
Okay.
And I think,
love it.
Over the course of time, there's so much wisdom in children's cartoons, right? Like there really is. I kind of feel like I did become Rainbow Bright. I got to tell you, like there's something very,
I see it. I'm seeing it.
Something very, very magical, rainbow sparkly about my brain that I really do enjoy on a daily basis. I see the world through, I don't know, maybe some of the acid I took in the 90s didn't wear off, but I do have a pretty good rose-colored glasses on to see the world pretty magically.
Yeah, Rainbow Bright, great answer. See, and some people have to really think about it. I always love meeting people that are already in the 2%. So some of us kind of stayed with it, and we didn't lose it, or if we lost it, it was just for a little season. So for some of us, I've always been willing to be weird, willing to be out there, and seeing that as like a gift, something to be grateful for, if you will. But I love your story. I love what you're all about. I think that this is going to be massive. You've already kind of teamed up with Chris, which is interesting. I'm having a conversation with him soon. But, it's just sometimes the most profound transformational things are right in front of us, but we can't unlock them by ourselves. So I love what you mentioned about the journal, the gratitude journal, because the truth is, without C, it does not work. Even if you are the best A-B'er in your strategy, if you don't connect and you don't collaborate, you don't have the opportunity to pour your gratitude, which I believe, and this is actually one of my big things. So authenticity, imagination are big. My third thing is generosity. Because if you unlock authenticity, imagination, and generosity within your organization, and that is celebrated as a culture, you will absolutely soar through the massive seismic shifts that are upon us. But that generosity can't happen in a vacuum, because that generosity requires other people to be involved.
Absolutely. And as soon as you show kindness to somebody else, you're energetically connected, and that starts to become kind of an inspiration boomerang. Here's the thing. We learned this from spiritual recovery groups, right? And that's why I almost feel bad for people who don't have addiction in their past, because it's like this.
It makes it so much easier once you have it. I know.
It was so helpful.
It's so much worse to just be a narcissist.
Well, it's like I didn't need to go to any more therapy and say me, and my problems about me, and she did this to me, he did this to me.
That's right.
When I got to recovery circles, it was like, it's not a me program, it's a we program. You're having a problem with yourself, reach your hand out and help someone else. Like that was news to me. You're in your own head?
Does that work, huh?
Yeah, you're in your own head. Come early and set up the meeting, stay late, and put the chairs away. Like
people don't realize how simple that is. Well, it's because it doesn't line up. So we'll kind of close with this because we're bumping up against time, but this has been awesome. This idea of not taking score, right? Or being generous, or thinking of life from an abundance place where you're going to give and you don't know exactly what the return is. Most things in business have to have a math equation. If I don't know where the return's coming from, we're not doing it. And that's part of the problem, is that if you're not thinking from an abundance standpoint, which comes from a deep gratitude, you're going to miss it. And you still, by the way, will miss all your KPIs and whatever bullshit you're talking about in the, quarterly meetings. But you'll also be so burnt out that you'll break anyway. So even if you do hit the KPIs, you hate your life.
100%. 100%. The last company I worked for before I left the public relations world, I was there for 6 years, and I had worked at every PR company, and PR mavens, the heads of these PR companies don't have a great reputation. Let's put it that way. It's like the devil wears Prada. And I worked for a lot of those devil wears Prada type of women.
Wow.
The last company I worked for, it was called Narrative Group. They rebranded to just be Narrative. Most amazing company I ever worked for. And they're still in business today. When I went there, we were 6 people. We're super small, but I watched those 2 female founders lead with appreciation and generosity and a spirit of, creating a culture of people being like, they would hand out, like they would get books for everybody. It would be like the Power of Now or The Tipping Point. And like, just, they inspired people to be on a personal development journey. And everybody there felt it to their heart. And it was top down. And it wasn't a show they were putting on. It was who they were.
Yeah.
And for 6 years, I can tell you, I have never seen a company grow that fast. We started as a 6-person boutique agency. We worked in like a closet at this stupid little building on 21st Street. And by the time I left there, we represented, like I said earlier, McDonald's, General Motors, Pernod Ricard, and we had just been acquired for $25 million from a huge PR conglomerate called Citizen. Yep. And then I left to have my own entrepreneurial journey. But that company taught me how I always want to be as a boss and the dividends that it can pay, because it pays deeply.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. People ask me all the time. So I had a similar story. I started with nothing, just me and my brother. I had an agency and then ended up getting into tech. And one of the companies we 60x'd in 3 years. We were on the Inc. 500 list and all that. And people always ask me how you did it. And when as I've really spent the last 3 years trying to unpack it, it's the 3 things I said. I mean, at the end of the day, people knew why they worked here, because a lot of people, they don't burn out because they don't have enough pay or they don't have enough, time off. They default to that, right? Because they don't know what else is really wrong. But the fact is, people burn out because they forget why they started doing this in the first place. And that is because no one is encouraging them as a leader to remember why.
Yeah. So true.
Love it. I love it.
I love it.
Yes, this was a really good conversation, Jamie. So obviously, give me the tagline, your Instagram handle again.
Absolutely, it's at NYC Fit Fam, like a fit family.
Okay, love it. And then, what's your website? Right, so like your main site.
Yeah, you can find me at meetjamiehess.com. That is my keynote speaking site. And then also I am a coach. I have both a weight loss and wellness track and also what I call the full reset, which is personal and professional development. And that is thebigaskmethod.com. Oh
my gosh, I love it. Well, I am very grateful, going back to gratefulology.
Gratitudeology.
Gratitudeology. Dang it. I'm going to get it.
You can trademark that one if you want it.
No. I'm letting you and Chris own gratitude. I'm just going to be in the audience. But guys, for all those listening, check out Jamie. This has been an amazing conversation. I know it's helped me a lot. And for those of you listening and watching, can't wait to see you on the next show. This has been the School of Why podcast.